want to start off today by having everyone close their eyes. Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. This isn't a magic show. Now I'm going to ask you to picture the day in a life that you may have experienced or could never possibly imagine. Ready? Okay, let's picture this. You wake up, red-eyed and exhausted, to the sound of your obnoxious alarm that destroyed that one peaceful hour of sleep you almost got. After a night of laying with your eyes stuck on the ceiling, the idea of having to get out of your bed and face the world seems like the beginning of a war. You drag your body out of bed into the bathroom where you look deeply into the mirror at your arms and hands like they aren't your own. The marks that cover them continue to look foreign even though you know exactly where they came from. The new burn from last night aches, but you pull your long sleeves over it anyways and pain subsides a bit. You get ready to leave the house but halt as you walk out the door. Do you really have to face this again? The mental exhaustion of just existing? The exhaustion of fighting your urges to take out the lighter and metal hook hanging in your pocket and give yourself some real relief? Is this ever going to stop? Can you ever stop? Would you even know how? Living with a mental illness of which convinces you to mutilate your own body feels kind of like this. The definition of self-harm explained by Mental Health America is when someone intentionally and repeatedly harms himself or herself in a way that is impulsive and not intended to be lethal. If you've not experienced this, maybe the visualization gave you a glimpse of a morning that, according to Samantha Gluck, 1 in 5 female and 1 in 7 male adolescents experience in their lifetime. Think of 5 or 7 people off the top of your head that you deeply love and care about. Imagine one of them struggling with something like self-harm. What would you do to help them? Would you know how to notice the signs? Where could you direct them for help? This is what I'm here to talk to you about. My story is just as real as ones you imagine. I guess that I am that 1 out of 5 females that will self-harm in their entire life. Trust me, being a statistic is not what I had in plan for my adolescence. I experienced a lot of the symptoms that were emphasized to look for in your loved ones. According to Mayo Clinic, these symptoms include fresh cuts, burns, bruises, or other wounds, wearing clothes that cover areas like arms or legs that are not in sync with the weather, like wearing a sweatshirt in the middle of July at 80 degrees, behavioral and emotional instability, impulsivity, and unpredictability, and statements of being helpless or worthless. I struggled for the better part of about 2 years with depression and generalized anxiety disorder. But then the thought of self-harm sneaks into my brain, only to coerce and poison my thoughts with negative feelings about myself, dramatic mood changes, and the general urge to see what self-harm was like. It was a terrifying and confusing experience for a teenager. Nevertheless, with these scary thoughts running marathons through my head, during schoolwork and my sleep, I caved. I used concealer on my arms and hands to hide the scars from burns when I was not strong enough to fight off these thoughts. When I felt really in trouble. When I knew I had a serious problem that was only progressing and could not be stopped, I told my mom that I needed help. She didn't ask a lot of questions, and within a week I was talking to someone about topics that I was convinced were not allowed to be discussed out loud. With the stigma behind mental illness, it makes it very difficult for young adults to ask their parents for help, either because they're terrified that they won't understand or that they straight up won't believe them. That is why it is so incredibly important to take this topic to light in society and to bring awareness to the acts of self-harm among adolescents. Allowing young adults to speak up without fear can give them the opportunity to get much-needed help instead of suffering all by themselves in their own brain. With the prevalence of social media in everyday life, I find it amazing what you are able to share online. Looking at Twitter specifically, you can use hashtags to emphasize a point. I thought it would be interesting to find out how many hashtags used for awareness of any cause had become famous, so I did some research. I came across a blog on Newsbeat that had configured the 10 most famous hashtags in 10 years of Twitter. Some of the more comical ones included hashtag the dress. We all know what dress we're talking about. Is it black? Is it blue? Is it gold? Is it white? I don't know. We'll never know. Or hashtag follow Friday. That encouraged people to follow a specific user that everyone else thought deserved some follows. A more modernized shout out, perhaps. But out of the 10 famous hashtags from the whole 10 years of Twitter, 4 of them were used to spread awareness of some issue. These included tags such as hashtag Black Lives Matter, to fight continuing racism, and he for she, to get people thinking about those who identify as transgender and to get them the equality they deserve. If the internet is able to spread awareness about these topics, it can easily spread information and resources for those struggling with thoughts of, or actions of self-harm. Now, when I tried finding pages, hotlines, or support groups, I found tons of what can be an incredible, helpful information for someone in need. Some programs I founded include SIOutreach.org, a website filled with self-injury support information such as coping techniques, recovery stories, and even information for loved ones who don't know how to deal with these difficult conversations to be had. Another being selfinjuryfoundation.org, which provides resources like therapist referrals, hotlines, and support groups. But the most famous would be the suicide prevention hotline that is open 24/7 for those who may be struggling with any thoughts of taking their own life or hurting themselves in one way or another. But have you personally heard of any of these? Perhaps a suicide hotline thanks to Logic, Alicia Carr, and Khalid. Do you wonder why maybe that is? It's because social media is not always used to its full potential. It is not always the first idea for advertisement, even though more of us check our phones these days than we do billboards and magazines. If these websites were spread through Twitter, Facebook, or any other social media outlet, maybe some suffering could be prevented or even stopped. I learned that getting help is nothing to be ashamed of. I was struggling but was able to catch myself when I felt it was almost too late to turn around. But what about people who can't catch themselves? Or those who are too afraid to be discriminated against if they tell an adult or a parent what they're struggling with? The social media community allows people to have a sense of community. They can use one or any of the sources mentioned before to talk to a stranger on the phone, to join a group online, to anonymously text a hotline and explain what they're going through. Social media gives people options. It gives them a rope in the dark to grab onto. For those who are experiencing or have ever experienced thoughts and or actions of self-harm, you will find that you really are not alone if you just open a computer and look for help if telling someone in person doesn't really seem to be an option for you. Help is out there. You don't have to look far for others who know what you are experiencing and can help guide you through it. I was able to rediscover myself when I was given an opportunity to accept my experiences with self-injury. And so can you. Thank you.